folks, welcome back to another MaizePlus video, and this time we're going to be having a look at the Animal Food Additions mod. This is a mod that's paired with MaizePlus, and what it does, it does two things. It's as you download it, it changes predominantly the way cows behave. They will eat a lot more food. They will produce a lot more milk, manure, slurry. So basically you need less cows. It's set up the way the farming agency guys have been playing it on their multiplayer server. It's designed to be more realistic, but yeah, the cows are going to eat a lot more. The other thing that it allows you to do is easily customize the feeding for all of the animals. You can change things like how much food the animals eat, how much straw, how much water they use, when cows have calves, when they produce milk, pretty much everything really. So I think best thing to do is get into our mods folder and take a look. So in my mods folder, if you're not sure where that is, it's under Documents, My Games, Farming Simulator 22 and Mods. So what we are looking for is highlighted here, the MaizePlus Animal Food Additions.zip. It is a separate mod to MaizePlus, so you'll need to download it separately. Definitely recommend you do that. So if we open it up with 7-zip, you'll see we have two files in here. We have two main files. We have the MaizePlus Animal Data Override. That's where you can change things like how much food animals eat, manure, straw, slurry, that kind of thing. And then we have the MaizePlus Animal Food, and that is where we can set what the animals eat, what goes into TMR, all that kind of thing. And I'm going to cover all of those. The reason that this exists is, if you're on a multiplayer server and you want to just tweak the food, this is a nice other reason it exists. This is a nice small mod to upload to the server to change things without having to upload all of MaizePlus. There's also less to see in here, therefore less to get wrong. With the Animal Food Additions mod enabled, it is going to overwrite everything that's in base MaizePlus, everything that's in base game, and anything that the map customizes for the feeding. So bear that in mind. But let's start by having a look in the Animal Data Override, and I think I can just about fit an entire section for an animal on the screen. So we'll go through the brown Swiss cows. Everything is pretty similar. So we start off with type cow and then subtype brown Swiss, and then further down we've got the same for Holsteins, etc., etc. We then have a section on reproduction if you want to change the reproduction. If not, you don't need it there. As it's set up, these cows will have their first calves, or can have their first calves, at 26 months for the duration of 10 months, so you can change either of those. But what that means is kind of like base game, the cows are going to get pregnant at 18 months as long as they've got 75% health. Then looking at, we have two sections underneath that. We have inputs and outputs. And then you have the override type, so we either have add or replace. If you add, it adds to the base game. If you replace, you change it. Makes sense, hopefully. And then for the inputs for cows, obviously we've got straw, food and water, and as you can see, these numbers are pretty big. So we're adding we're adding some straw, we're adding a lot of food. By the time the cows are 28 months old, we're adding nearly 5,000 liters a month extra per animal. That's a lot. And so you don't need as many cows with this enabled, and we're using a bit more water. The other big thing you'll notice here is that cows won't start producing milk until about 26 months, and then it'll ramp up a lot, and you'll get a lot more milk than you would from the cows as standard. So you'll be getting 1,600 liters of milk for each of your brown Swiss, and if you had Holsteins, they produce more. You're getting 2,000 liters of milk per animal. So yeah, you can change any of this as you want. Each type of cow and then subtype has its own data section, so you can customize it completely if you wanted for, between the Angus and the Limousin beef. Totally up to you. We then go into pigs, and you can see here, basically the pigs just use a bit more straw and eat a bit more food. You could add outputs so you get more manure as well, or more slurry. That is up to you. It's entirely designed to be customized. It's the great thing about MaizePlus. You'll notice that sheep use straw. You will need a suitably set up animal pen for that. I don't know if there are any sheep pens that are set up to use straw. I haven't really looked. Potentially someone could set one up so that they could produce manure as well, along with using the straw. You know, there's a lot of flexibility for modders here. I know that horses produce manure, so you could use this to increase the amount of manure that horses produce. I'm not going to cover that in this video because it's going to be quite a long video just focusing on changing the feed. The same, you know, roosters can use straw. Maybe we could make chicken poo. So yeah, I'm not going to go into any more on that. If people are interested in, you know, how to play around with this a bit more, then leave a comment and I will have a look at that. So that was the animal data override file. Let's go into the animal food file now. This is the one that I think more of you will be interested in editing. So at the top, we have each of the 5 main animals, and then for each of those animals, there are 4 food groups. They vary, there are different categories, but basically there are 4 food groups that you can add food into. The 2 sets of numbers here are basically the amount of food that the animals will eat and how it affects their health. Basically, think of it as you need to feed for the cows 40% of the base food, 30% hay, 20% moisture food, 10% power food, and the same with the others. Personally, I wouldn't change those too much unless you're really getting into some detail. And if you're really getting into some detail, then you probably don't need this tutorial. So for each of those food groups, so that those are each of the sliders in game, you have the different fill types that you can feed for the animals. You might notice that for things like sheep and horses, there is some repetition. So you've got grass windrow here, which is grass or wet grass for the sheep. The grass windrow is to do with the grazing mod, which is available on Mod Hub. And then a wet grass windrow is fresh grass cut with a mower. So there's probably some things you can play around with there to make your feeding easier with or without grazing. What I'm going to show you quickly is adding in some new fill types, so changing what you feed to the animals. I'm going to do some quite random stuff, so you will need to know the fill type names. The way to do that is to, if it's from a mod, open up the mod, and in fact I will show you that right now. So there are 3 places that you might want to go to look for fill types. The first one, if it's a specific mod like Dazed Seed Potato mod, where you get things like waste potatoes, they're probably a really good thing to feed to your cows. You might want to add those into TMR or directly into the feed trough. So the fill type we want here is waste potato. So I'm just going to highlight that and copy it, and we're just going to drop it in to the moisture food. Rather than feeding them quality potatoes, we're going to feed them some waste potatoes. And then we can close that down, and we can close down the mod. And then the other one of the other places you might want to look is the map. So I have Calmsden here. Not all maps will have a fill types list in. Find one that does if you're struggling to find them. You'll become familiar with things, and this will give you a list of all of the different fill types that you could use in the map. And we're just going to have a look, and I just want to check that yes, bread is indeed called bread, because we're going to add bread into the feeding as well. And you know, where do we add that? Bread a power food? Let's add bread as a power food. So there we've added waste potatoes into the cow feeding and bread. So let's just save this, update it, and we'll get back into the game and I'll show you that working, and then we'll come back and look at some more of this file. So if we do a save, close, and then it should ask us, there we go, if we want to update the mod, which we do, and then we'll close down all of these and I will see you in the game. So we are back in the game. I've got some bread and I've got some waste potatoes from Dazed Potato mod. So let's bung super strength on. Just cows don't have any food at the moment, so let's take them a couple of boxes of bread. We'll just take 1 box, in fact. And yes, I know it's quite random feeding bread, but you know it happens in the real world. So There we go. They have bread. They are powered up with bread. And then if we take the waste potatoes, we should get them some moisture food as well. I think this is a really good use of things like the waste potatoes from Dazed Potato mod. And there we go. So that's how we can add food to the individual sliders. Let's now go and have a look at some of the other aspects of the animal food file. So we're back out and I've reopened the animal food.xml file. And next we're going to have a look at is feed mixtures and then specifically tier markers. I'm sure that's why most of you are here. So the next section of the file is the forage fill types. These are what are used for the custom TMR mixtures. And what we have here is the first one. Do not mess with this. Just ignore it. Forget it's there. It's to do with the feeding robots. Now, it does say in the manual that the feeding robots don't work. That is because they can't keep up with the amount of feed that your cows will eat. So just leave this alone. Ignore it, okay? The important bit with the feed mixtures, and I'm just trying to get it so they're all on the screen. There we go. So each of these components is how much will go against a bar. So the fill type grass fermented will count as 40% of the forage mixture. And if I highlight that, you'll see that's up here, the top slider, 40%. So for this first one, you need something that's in this list. So if you change it, you need to make sure that the fill types down here are reflected up here. I would suggest not deleting these core fill types. Just my advice. So the next one, alfalfa hay. You can see alfalfa hay is there. Potato cut is there. Mineral feed is there. And all of these mixtures that are preset are the same. The only reason you ever need to touch them is if you delete something from up here that's in here, you need to replace it in here with something that's still up in this list. Okay. Personally, I wouldn't mess with these. But next we get into the some of the predefined animal feed. So this is the power food that I mentioned in my cow feeding video. And then we've got wet grass windrow, which is the indirect grazing or zero grazing, where you can mow fresh grass, put it in a loading wagon, take it to the cow shed, feed them. And then grass windrow is to make the grazing work. And this is where the grazing will fill all 4 bars. So that's pretty cool. If you're interested in grazing, then Modelash has a video on that on his channel. We've then got the horse feeds and the pig feeds. Interesting one here is that pig food 2, which is the pig food that you buy from MaizePlus, will feed all 4 bars. With the animal food additions with MaizePlus, it only fills 2 of the bars, and then the vanilla pig food fills 2 bars. If you wanted to change that so that the vanilla pig food filled all 4 bars as well, you could copy this and paste it down here. And that way now the base game pig food will also fill all 4 bars. I probably will do this because pigs don't work very well in FS22, and to really make them profitable, you need to be able to buy cheap pig food. So this will let you use the various mods that give you cheap pig food, and it will fill all 4 bars. And I'll show you that when we get back in the game. And we're now into the TMR mixtures. Again, the first one, ignore it. It's not there. Please do not change the forage recipe. Okay, ignore that one. We've got the realistic mixture here, and then we've got the others. I wouldn't worry if you're really interested in changing the names. You need to go into the mod description in MaizePlus. I'm not going to show you that today because, again, it's a little bit more advanced, and I just want to give you the basics of how to do customization if you want. We've also got grain mix, and we've got the pig feed for the mixer wagon. So if you wanted to change that, you can. It produces pig food, so the one that you could buy. Yeah, so you can customize that as well if you wanted. Maybe make it a bit heavier on root crops so it's a bit cheaper. Up to you. So we're going to customize a forage recipe. This is based on a recipe that one of the guys on my YouTube channel sent me. He works for a beef and dairy farm, so it's a realistic mixture. I have had to tweak it a little bit to make it easier to use in game. So I'm just going to get the details of that up, and I will be back with you. So this mixture is the calving or milking TMR that they use on the farm. I have had to edit it slightly just to make it easier to mix. Just because, you know, the way MaizePlus, the way the game works and stuff, it's a bit more precise. So it is a mixture of grass silage, maize silage, hay, grain mix, minerals, and then there's options for whole crop silage and water. The grain mix, I think, is to replicate another product which is not available in MaizePlus. So it's done me a favour and it's just made it a little bit easier. So we're going to do forage 4. So the first one is in fact grass, and we need hay, and we need to have that at 15 to 40%. Once we've done this, I'll go back into the game and I will show you us making this mix just so you can see that it has worked. The next one is, the next two are grass silage and maize silage. The easiest way I think to get those is to find the lines up here. So the realistic mixture has pretty much all of them. So we're just going to copy the grass silage and the maize silage lines down. And grass silage, the actual mix they use is 50% grass silage, but I'm going to put it, I might have said 40, I'm actually going to go 30 just to make it easier. You'll see why, you know, when we get into mixing it, but they use 50 to 75% grass. So yeah, we're going to go for 30 to 75%, and then for the maize they use 10 to 50%. I really like when mixtures have a minimum because it forces you to be a bit more realistic in your feeding. Next is grain mix, and again we've got that up here, it's grain grist, so we're going to copy that, paste it in, and that is 10 to 25%. So that's that one in. We then have mineral feed. We already have minerals here. I'm going to cut it and move it up just so we can neaten this up afterwards. The mineral feed and minerals are the two types of mineral feed that are available. They both work the same, so we're going to leave them. We have a minimum of 5% there. And then we have options for whole crop silage and water. So silage there. So what we can do is just replace this with silage, which is the fill type for whole crop silage. And we'll now tidy up the gaps here. So silage is 0 to 40%. And then we have water, which is 0 to 5%. We've got that there as well. So we're going to delete the molasses line, and water is 0 to 5%. Awesome. So that is our custom TMR mixture. As with everything else, save, close, update archive, and I will see you back in the game. So we are back in the game, and if I get this up on the mix, you can see that we now have our silage mixture. It's labeled as young stock. That's because I said it's a bit of a pain to go and edit that in the mod desk of MaizePlus, and so I'm just going to leave it as is. The bright people amongst you might have spotted that I had forgotten to delete the straw line when I saved it, so I've just gone in and fixed that. But so from the bottom we have our hay, maize silage, grass silage, grain mix, mineral feed, and then optional whole crop silage and water. And over here I have a bunch of ingredients to put in. I'm going to use super strength just to make this a bit easier. So I've got 2 bales of maize silage, 4 bales of grass silage. So I'm going to put in a bale of grass silage first, and then we're going to put in all of the kind of the concentrates. I'm putting in some grass silage first just because sometimes the concentrates won't go in without something in the mixer. That's a function of base game rather than MaizePlus. So yeah, have a little bit of grass silage in there now. And I've got 3 bags of grain mix that I've brought from the store. So that's 3,000 litres of grain mix, which we're going to put in. And then we're going to put in about 1,500 litres of minerals, and then the rest of those bales. And then I have some hay in the hay loft that we have handy on the farm. Quite often for mixing TMR, I used to use one of Alien Jim's silos because it's really good that you can put everything in it and then you can just sit under there and get the percentages that you need. Just makes it a lot easier. It's maybe not realistic, and you might, if you use the realistic mixture that's built in to MaizePlus, actually it allows you to create, almost any TMR you might want anyway. And the minimums are very, there's only grass silage and maize silage that have a minimum, and you could edit those as well, and it just lets you make a TMR almost as you want. So yeah, that might be an option for you, but we need to go up to about 8,000 litres on this mineral feed. So it's 1 and a bit pallets, and I think it's taking from the pallet that empties slowest, which is the base game one first. So I have one of each. I have a base game one and a Doika one, just to show you that it doesn't really matter or make a difference which one you go for. Yeah, Mum. Yeah, so yeah, you can add whatever you want in here. We could have added the waste potatoes in from Dade's potato mod. We could have added the bread in. I'm really hoping that with MaizePlus coming, that some of the modders get really creative with their mods, and they have, like Dazed has waste potatoes. Maybe some of the productions have waste that comes out of them that we can then put in our feed. Like the brewer's grain, that's a waste product from the brewing industry. There we go. Almost wasn't paying attention then. If we back up now, I'm going to super strength these bales in, partly because it's quicker and easier, partly because this mixer is a bit funny with bale triggers, and partly because sometimes I am not the best driver. So these are the maize silage bales going in. I really like the HUD as it's displayed now with MaizePlus. It was one of the things that they rewrote, was the HUD for the mixer. Yeah, it's really nice. And yeah, I really hope that modders get into adding waste to their productions. I am considering adding, doing a MaizePlus version of my dairy, and from the cheese production, maybe producing whey as a waste product, so that you could then put that in your TMR, because that's, I think that's kind of a high protein liquid. So I think that would be cool. So yeah, that's pretty good. I think we can put one more in, and then we'll have space for the hay that we need. Really, mixing TMR, which this is kind of turning into a video on, is a bit of experimentation. There is no best TMR. There is no best, well, there maybe is a best way to make TMR, because there's probably a way to make it as cheap as possible. That's probably just doing something like a mixture of grass silage and maize silage. But from a point of view of gameplay, there is no best silage. They all work equally well. It doesn't matter if you feed a mixture that's labelled as beef stock to dairy. That makes no difference at all. They all behave exactly the same as a game mechanic. So if we pull under here, we can put our hay in, and we do not quite have enough space for hay. No. So I think what we are going to have to do is back up and empty some of this out and try and put a bit more hay in. There we go. It's emptying some stuff out. There we go. We've got a bit more space. So we should hopefully now be able to get the rest of the hay in that we need. Not sure. Nope. Yes. Yep, we have a TMR. So yeah, it's what happens when you don't quite do these things with enough practice and prep. But yeah, we've got some hay on the floor now. No, we've got something on the floor. Probably might be some forage. But yeah, that's our custom TMR mix. I personally, if I was setting one up, would be very generous with the minimums. Much harder if you've got a small mixer. This is a reasonably big mixer, but yeah, I would be quite generous with the minimums. So at the moment, we've got 2,000 litres of moisture food and 1,000 litres of power food. And if we just get this going on feeding, we'll let that run out, and you'll see that it has filled up all of the bars, and it fills them up as a proportion to what they eat. So you'll see we're getting more base food, then roughage, then power food, and moisture food. Yeah, so that's that done. We'll just very quickly also think I have some pigs in the pig enclosure. I do, so we're very quickly going to just check that the base game food now fills all of the sliders for pigs. Can we buy big bags of pig food? We can, just because I prefer big bags. Oh, where's that gone? It's the problem of using store deliveries when the map is very busy. I'm not entirely sure where that's gone. It might have gone into the pig enclosure. No, let's do it out here. This is my second time of recording this video, so some of the prep is not perfect. Some is better, some is not. So at the moment, the pigs don't have any food. If we take this over and get it to empty, you'll see that the pigs now have food in all 4 sliders. So yeah, you might want to do that if you want to make pigs easy, or in my view, cost effective to feed. As released for MaizePlus, I believe that each of the 2 types of pig food will only feed 2 of the 4 sliders each, so you would need both. I do have a pig feeding video which covers that, and then with the animal food additions, the pig feed that's available with MaizePlus as standard fills all 4, and so what we've just done is changed it so that both types of pig feed fill all 4. And I think that is it for this video. There's bound to be questions. If you have questions about things that I have put in the video or aren't in the video, ask a comment below. If you have questions that are more related to the mod side and MaizePlus and Animal Food Editions, then there's a link for the MaizePlus Discord. Go ask in there. If you enjoyed the video, click the like button. If you didn't enjoy the video, click the thumbs down. The algorithm still likes it. I don't care. Someone will click dislike. They always do. If you're new to the channel, click the subscribe button. And I think that's it. So I will catch you next time.